ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनीति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेमापदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने गौतसे नमः। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते तप्त कांत गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्णा चैतन्या प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone for today morning discussion. We are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is part of our Bhagavat Live program, wherein we are discussing from third canto, chapter number 27. Before I just proceed ahead, Abhishek Prabhu, everything is fine with the sound and all?
Yes, Guruji.
Can anyone
Sound is
just verify with the sound? So, microphone. Hare Krishna. Yeah. So just change the microphone now. And speaker is changed to micro speakers. I should be able to hear all of you. Sound is all good. All right. If somebody needs to share the screen, Madam Medhavni, I made you co-host, if in case you want to share the screen, what's this? All right, so we are here on this Friday morning. Nice, fine morning here. We're reading from third canto, 27th chapter. Devahuti inquires from Kapila Dev. That's the subject matter going on. And she had raised 3 queries before in the 25th chapter. Of some of those were answered in 26, and now 27 continues with the discussion. So the discussion what we had in the previous chapter was largely about the 3 subject matters: Ishvaraha, Jiva, and Prakriti, and their relationship with each other. It's I would say one of the most technical subject matter. Deepak Prabhu tried his best to do justice yesterday. That was a good job, but it's indeed a difficult subject. So we'll continue with this, chapter number 27. Let's begin with text number 1. You got to be attentive, avoid multitasking if you want to understand the subject. You can't be cooking in the kitchen simultaneously hearing it. It's going to be difficult. If you don't have another option, that's a different thing, but got to be attentive. All right. Text number 1, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, where Kapila talks about how to become aloof from the modes of material nature. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Prakatistopi Purusho, Najyate Prakrate Gunehi, Avikarat Akartatvan, Nirgunatva Jalarkavat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace S.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The personality of Godhead, Kapila, continued. When the living entity is thus unaffected by the modes of material nature, because he is unchanging and does not claim proprietorship, he remains apart from the reactions of the modes. Although abiding in a material body, just as the sun remains aloof from its reflection on the water. So, Kapila answers a very important question: how a living entity, while being in this world, can remain aloof. Let me raise some questions so you have some food for thought. Then we'll take this discussion forward. We talk about Jivan Mukta, a liberated soul. Now, can a liberated soul exist in material creation when that liberated soul is already having a material body? And as long as you have a material body, which is a gift of three modes of material nature, so is it technically, is it ever possible for anyone being in this world to be liberated? First thing. Second thing, now Kapil Dev is saying you can, there is two different things, being in Prakriti. Haribol, baith jao, don't jump around. I'll get distracted. Sit down. What was I saying? So there are two things here. First, how to become aloof from the modes of material nature. So we can still be in Prakriti. We can be in this world, but we can still be aloof from the modes of material nature. Srila Sridhar Swami gives a very beautiful analogy. Pay attention what he says. He says, because somebody is in contact with the police does not mean he's a prisoner. Getting the point? Because somebody is in contact with the police does not mean he's a prisoner. Imagine your next door neighbor is a police inspector. You know him very well. You meet with him. Maybe you go to his house for a lunch or you invite him for a lunch. Because you're in contact with the police does not mean you are a prisoner. Similarly, because somebody is in this material world does not necessarily mean has to be under the influence of the modes of material nature. When does in living entity, when does a person living in a society put behind the prison bar? The same policeman will come and catch you if you break the laws of the society. Similarly, when a living entity lives his life against dharma, or when he practices adharma, then he gets influenced by the modes of material nature. Now, ichha dvesha samattena dvandva mohena bharataha. So there are two reasons why a living entity comes to this world. What are the two reasons? Bhagavad Gita 7th chapter, verse number 27 says, Ichha and Dvesh. Samuthena dvandva mohena bharataha. Ichha, desire to lord over. I want to become Krishna. And Dvesh, envy towards Krishna. Because of which living entity comes to this world. So whoever is born into this creation gets covered over by the three modes of material nature. But one who takes to the path of yoga while even living in this world can get freed from the clutches of the modes of material nature if he lives a dharmic life. And such an individual then is called as Jivan Mukta. He may have the body made up of matter, he may be very much in this world, but he is now not ruled by or controlled by, influenced by the inferior energy or Prakriti, but is now entirely under the Haladini Shakti or the spiritual energy. Is that making sense? So in that way, if somebody who breaks the law is put under the law of Prakriti, somebody who follows what instructions or what things Kapila Dev is saying, then he comes under the control of Lord's internal energy, Haladini Shakti. While even living in this world, he is liberated, Jivan Mukta. That's the subject matter. So here, how to remain aloof from modes. So to remain aloof from mode, Kapil Dev says, we should not claim proprietorship. We should not consider ourselves proprietorship. So question comes, what happens when someone claims proprietorship? Prabhupada writes very beautifully at the end of the purport. No, let me add it this way. Can you ask this an open question for all of you? We all are infected with these three qualities. I want to be enjoyer, I want to be a proprietor, I want to be a controller. As a sadhaka, we are struggling. There is a back tug of war between these things. So here is my question to all of you. In what situation can you not act as a proprietor? Or in what situation you will not act as a proprietor? Regardless of you have the tendency of acting as a proprietor, but in what situation you will not act as a proprietor?
When serving
In
God.
what situation? I'm not talking attitude. In what situation you will not act as a proprietor? And this is such a profound concept. And this is why it has been repeated again and again. The very first quality for a disciple has to be, he has to be obedient. He has to give up his independent mentality. Now, to help you understand, please go to the end of the purport, or maybe I'll just read out, pay attention to the purport. Last 5 lines. You can just hear it. When one does something at his own risk, there is a sense of proprietorship and therefore a reaction. But pay attention. Mother, we are reading from 3rd Canto, 27th chapter, verse number 1. All right, Mother Vaikuntha. But when one does everything for Krishna, there is no proprietorship over the activities. By changeless and by not claiming the proprietorship of activities, one can immediately situate himself in the transcendental position in which one is not touched by the modes of material nature, just as the sun is unaffected by the water. So, Prabhupada writes, when one does something at his own risk, we can close the screen, please. When one does something on his own risk means when somebody does independently, you immediately claim proprietorship. But when you follow instructions, then you don't claim proprietorship. Let me give you an example here to help you understand. I hope you get this logic. I'll give 2 points here. First, let's give an example. Arjuna, to fight the battle, he gave an excuse. My dear Krishna, I should not fight this battle because I will incur sin. And Krishna said, well, you will not incur sin. Arjuna said, well, how will I not incur sin? If I kill my great-grandfather, if I kill my teacher, if I kill my relatives, how will I not incur sin? Krishna says, you will not incur sin if you do it as I say. If you do it because Krishna said it, then you will not incur sin. But if you do it on your own, if you fight the battle on your own, then you will incur sin. Let me give you an example, a simple example. Let's say a military officer, an army man, is stationed at the, what we call as line of control. There's a very strict rule in the military and the army. You cannot shoot unless you have order from your authority. Yes, you cannot shoot. And when you shoot, when you have an authority, no reaction comes to you. In fact, you are awarded. But imagine if a person, just like we know the case of BrahMos missile, which was accidentally fired, day in, day out, there are news about, Pakistan hates India, India hates Pakistan, whatever it goes on, Pakistan is sending terrorists. Narendra Modi had twice in his tenure, he had attacked at Pakistan in 2 different occasions. Once he sent an army man on foot, second time through the air. Now imagine if Pakistan is sending terrorists regularly, and if a BrahMos missile is shot, it is good only, na? Once for all, things would be settled. But why all those people were held responsible? Those who misfired, why they were, and on top of it, there was no, ammunition in that BrahMos. It was an empty missile, but they all were punished. Why? Because they did it without sanction. Similarly, Krishna tells Arjuna, Arjuna, if you do it as I say it, if you follow the authority, then you will not incur sin. And therefore, the last point on this, Srila Prabhupada in the first canto, I've often repeated this point. First canto, Prabhupada says, all your endeavors becomes auspicious if it is sanctioned by authority. And I've defined before, and I'll say again, what auspiciousness means. Auspiciousness, we should not see from the material calculation. The more we are a fruitive worker, to that degree we are attached to the result. And then we'll say auspiciousness means result. Auspiciousness is not result. That is not how spiritual understanding functions. Auspiciousness is, it will not incur the good reaction or bad reaction for you. Auspicious means without any reaction, piety or impiety. So like that, Prabhupada says, in what situation you can give a proprietorship? If you live your life as being sanctioned. If you do things which have been ordered, then you will not take proprietorship. Why? Because I am doing as I've been told to do it. That's a simple formula process. Text number 2. So now, Kapil Dev says, when does a living entity becomes entangled? When the soul is under the spell of material nature, text number 2, and false ego, identifying his body as a self, he becomes absorbed in material activities. And by the influence of false ego, he thinks that he is the proprietor of everything. False ego, identifying his body as a self, he becomes absorbed in material activities. So, absorbed in material activities, which means, okay, let me ask this question. A devotee going for a job, That's also material activity. And a karmi going for a job. Let's say both of them sitting right next to each other. For one, we say he gets no reaction. For other, we say he's bound by material activity. Are yaar, he's also writing a code. Our devotee is also writing a code. Both are material activity. But how it is not a material activity? Because one person is doing with the spirit of, I am the proprietor, I am the enjoyer, I am the controller. Other person is doing, the devotee is doing, Ya Nisha Sarva Bhutana Tasyam Jagrati Samyati. The classic verse from the second chapter. What is night is a day for a devotee. What is day for a devotee is a night time. It's a matter of consciousness, which means for a devotee, let's say computer engineer or IT employee, he is not doing with an intention to enjoy. He is doing why a devotee performs work. Fourth chapter Bhagavad Gita. What does Krishna says? Sorry, fifth chapter, verse number 8 and 9. Krishna says, why a devotee performs work? Like Arjuna wanted to walk away from the battlefield. And Krishna is saying, no, you are a Kshatriya. And why Arjuna wanted to walk away from the battlefield? For his ultimate self-realization. What does Narad Muni says to Brahmaji in first canto, fifth chapter? He says, Tasyeva heto prayateta ko vidhu na labhyate yat brahmatat upari adha. We should aim for that goal which you will not find by going to the highest planet, Brahma Loka, to the lowest planet. And if you look at Arjuna, he was aiming for self-realization. He said, my dear Lord, if I fight this battle, then my future is destroyed. I'll be caught up in the cycle of karma. I want my self-realization. I want to go to the forest. Why did Krishna stop when Arjuna actually was aiming for the highest goal? Krishna said, that is not the way for the highest goal. The way for the highest goal, self-realization, is by engaging your senses in doing your prescribed duty. So what is the goal of the prescribed duty? And the goal of prescribed duty is, hey, some of you have heard it for so many times. This concept I often keep repeating because we keep, what is the goal of work? What is the goal of work?
Purification.
What? How do you satisfy the Lord? That is true. That is ultimate. Samshuddhi haritoshanam. Atha pambridhuja shreshtaha vanashrama vibhagashaha. Right? Whatever I do, Hare Samsiddhi Haritoshnam. What is the intermediate? Ultimate goal is Krishna Prema in yoga. Intermediate goal in yoga is control of mind. And when you do work, Samsiddhi Haritoshnam. But what is an intermediate goal? Purification. Krishna says, you can read fifth chapter, verse number 8 and 9, is purification of one's consciousness. And how consciousness gets purified? When you utilize the results of your work in the service of the Lord. That's the point here. So here, how it is a material activity? When you want to utilize everything for your own sense gratification, and which is further promoted by the sense of false ego. So Prabhupada in the purport talks about how we can give up this thing is through devotional service. We'll come to that. Kapil Muni is going to speak about it. So we'll take a look at that part of time. How we can, rather than doing the same activity, just to conclude the subject matter, again, the example of an IT worker, devotee IT worker and non-IT worker, non-devotee IT worker. So the difference in consciousness is everything is done for the pleasure of the Lord. Third chapter, Krishna says, how work should be performed? I quoted from fifth chapter. The intermediate goal is purification of consciousness. And what is the consciousness and what consciousness you perform your work? Please repeat. Yagna arthat karmano anyatra. Loko yam karma bandhanaha. यज्ञ अर्थात कर्मणो अन्यत्र. यज्ञ के अलावा कर्मण अन्यत्र लोको यम कर्म बंधना. If you are performing duty for anything else except for sacrifice, then that work will bind you, either in the sinful reaction or the pious reaction. Tadartham karma kaunteya. Loudly. Tadartham karma kaunteya. Mukta sangha samacharaha. But if it is done for the pleasure, as a sacrifice, that same work will liberate you. Just like Krishna speaks about the food also, it's not enough to eat vegetarian diet. What does Krishna says? Yagna shishta shanha shanto muchante sarva kilbishaha bhunjate te tu agham papam trapyanti atma karana. Again, yagna shishta shano shanto. So whatever food you eat, yagya. it has to be offered in sacrifice. Whatever work you do, yagna arthat karmanotya, it has to be offered as sacrifice. That's the goal of human form of life, means sacrifice. Everything has to be done as an offering. That's the point here. And then the climax of that discussion is in third chapter, verse number 30th. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya dhyatma chetasa निराश निर्ममो भूत्वा युद्धस्व विगता ज्वरः. Give up laziness and fight. How? Mai sarvani karmani, dedicating everything unto me. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasa. What should be the consciousness? Renunciation from the results. Nirasha, do not claim to be proprietorship. Nirasha, nirmama. Nirmama is proprietary. Nirasha means do not have expectation. Asha, for the result, to enjoy. Like that, one performs duty. So that's the subject matter, how to become. Text number 3. Now, what is the result of material association? If in case person does not act in such a consciousness, what is the result? Text number 3. The conditioned soul, if we do not take to the path of yoga, Bhakti Yoga, which Kapil Muni will speak further, but I just made some example for Bhagavad Gita to help understand. What will happen if you do not follow Bhakti Yoga? Kapil Dev says, Tena samsara padavim avasho abhed anivratah prasangike karmadoshe sad asanmishrayonishu. The conditioned soul therefore transmigrates into different species of life, higher, lower, because of his association with the modes of material nature, unless he is relieved of material activities. He has to accept the position because of his faulty work. Now, unless he gives us material activity does not mean sannyas, which means his desire to enjoy, claim himself to be a proprietor and owner. So what happens to a living entity if he does not take to the process of Bhakti Yoga, as Krishna speaks in Bhagavad Gita, or Kapil Dev is going to speak shortly. Chitraketu Maharaj says, very beautiful, when he was cursed by Mother Parvati, he said, Mother, don't worry. It's not your fault. And then he says, please repeat. Samsara chakra etasmin jantu ajnana mohitaha brahmyate sukham va dukkham va bhunkate sarvatra sarvada. So samsara chakra etasmin jantur ajnana mohita. Because of his ignorance, mohita, illusion, samsara chakra, he's caught up in the samsara chakra, birth, death, old age, this is going up, coming down, going up, coming down. Brahmatyam, and while going through Brahman, sukham va dukkham cha. Sometimes he finds happiness, sometimes he gets misery. When he goes up, happy. When you come down, you remember the Ferris wheel? When you go up, you become excited. When he comes down, like this. When you go up, excited. When you come down, you suffer. Bhunkate sarvatra sarvadaha. Sarvatra sarvada bhunkate. Like this, he is going through the happiness and distress at all times in all situations. That is the situation that happens with a living entity. That's the point which mentioned. Karma doshaha, faulty actions. Prabhupada speaks some very interesting things in the purport. Prabhupada doesn't leave any stone unturned to bring the reality of so-called philanthropists. Prabhupada says, the third line. Purport. The foolish conditioned soul may think that he is offering charity by opening hospitals for material benefit or by opening an educational institution for material education. But he does not know that all such work is also faulty because it will not give him relief from the process of transmigration from one body to another. I hope you're able to see now. There are only 2 levels of work. One is karma doshaha. If it is not done for some siddhir haritoshanam, if it is not done yagna arthat karmano anitra, for the pleasure of yagnapati, if it is not done for him, everything else is going to bind you, regardless how great a philanthropist may be there. That's the point here. And Prabhupada says, to take a birth in a nice place, a high family, does not mean that one avoids undergoing material tribulations. So when you look at somebody who's born rich, do not feel insecurity, oh, wish I was born in a rich family, how life would have been good. Prabhupada said, well, it doesn't matter if you're born in a rich family, you still have to go through birth, you still have to get disease, you're still going to get old age and death. It is unavoidable. So from this vision, when we look at the world, A devotee can remain unaffected because he knows that everything is happening because of karmic influences. There is nobody happy in this world. Only situation when a person can be happy when he's sheltered at the lotus feet of the Lord. Not only this, in text number 4, then Kapilada says, Mother Devhuti, this whole material existence is like a dream. It's not false. Dream is not false. This is Mayavadi's understanding, they call it false. In fact, there is a whole concept called as dream psychology, where what you see in a dream as something as a future foretelling, or else is something talking about, is dictating about your past life. Dream is not like today is difficult to figure it out because our exposure has become too much. Whole day and night we are watching, hearing things like that. So mind has become too complicated. But previously, whatever dreams you'll have, it can be easily concluded what's going to happen either in the future or what mistakes you've done in the past because of which you're getting such kind of scary dreams. So it's not false, it's temporary. Just like you go into the night to sleep, you saw something in a dream and you acquire different bodies and different positions, but when you wake up, it goes away. So Kapila says, text number 4, Artehi avidyamanepi samshritirna nivartate dhyayato vishayanasya swapne anarthagamo yataha. Actually, living entity is transcendental, but because of his mentality of lording over, his material existential condition does not end. Cease means ends. He continues to live in this world. Just as in a dream, he is affected by the all sorts of disadvantages. So, example analogy is given just like when you go to sleep, you see a dream, but you're different than that. When you wake up, it's gone. Similarly, the life that you're living here is like a dream. You know, it has a beginning, it has an end. And in that, there is a tenure, what we call 60 years, 80 years, a very short span of life. And we have taken that short span of life so seriously. We invested all our energy trying to improve ourselves in a bodily way, but not wondering about what happens after that. So, like that, that is called as to be a dream. We have taken our dream very seriously. Again, Prabhupada, I don't know what's going on with Prabhupada while he's taking a special class for philanthropists. Generally, Prabhupada is known for taking special class for Mayavadis. Prabhupada is having philanthropists. In the same, this purport also at the end of the paragraph, Prabhupada says, only Krishna is true friend. Bhoktaram, Jagatapasam, Sarvalok, Suhridam. He is the only true friend. But these philanthropists, by donating things, they try to act as a friend. But nobody can be a true friend because that is also temporary. And remember, the Prabhupada gave that beautiful example. If a Tata's son have been lost, and you happen to be a friend of Tata's, and you are standing in a traffic light, and a beggar comes to you and knocks on the door, and you realize him to be a son of Tata, what should you do? Give him some money, he can eat food, or provide for education because he's a son of your friend, or bring him back to his father. Prabhupada says, bring him. Prabhupada asked the reporter, I believe this example was given in Pune only. Prabhupada asked, what do you say? Reporter said, bring him back to father. Why? Because now he doesn't have to worry about anything. He doesn't even have to go through education because everything is he will inherit. Similarly, any kind of philanthropy is insufficient unless that awakens Krishna consciousness, that awakens spiritual consciousness, because it'll continue to bind an individual in his material life. Text number 5. Now Kapil Dev says, okay, living entity is bound in this nature, how to purify oneself. And he says, Ataiva Shaneshchitam Prasaktam Asatam Pati Bhakti Yogena Tivrena Viraktya Chanayadvasham. Although Kapil Dev is credited to give Sankhya Yoga, but look, he is talking about Bhakti Yogena Tivrena. But that's therefore Prabhupada writes, Kapil Dev actually spoke about Bhakti Yoga. So Sankhya Yoga was, but Bhakti Yoga in that way. It is the duty. It is very important verse. Duty of every soul, conditioned soul, to engage his polluted consciousness. What do you mean by what polluted? Proprietor, enjoyer, controller. Polluted consciousness, which is now attached to material enjoyment. Bhakti Yogena Tivrena, in a very serious devotional service. Viraktya Chanayadvasham, with detachment. Thus his mind and consciousness will be under full control. It is a duty. Again, the same thing. Tasyeva hetu prayateta kovido. So, our goal should be to go beyond this material world and enter into the spiritual life. Similarly, it's a duty of every living entity. It's a duty of every living entity, but more important than that, it's a duty of every devotee to facilitate this opportunity for others, so that others who are in ignorance, ajnanataha, they understand what is their real duty. Therefore, Krishna says at the end of Bhagavad Gita, who is most dear to me? One who speaks or shares this message of Bhagavad Gita with others. Now you understand why? Because it's a duty of a devotee to awaken others to their real life. Otherwise, living entity continues to suffer like this. So, serious devotional service, when you hear the word Bhakti Yogena, what let's ask this, let's do a quick brainstorming. When you hear the word Bhakti Yogena, what all comes to your mind? What do you mean by Bhakti? And it said Bhakti Vanti Vrena, with a lot of eagerness. What does Bhakti Yoga indicate? What few things come to your mind? Quick. What is the first thought comes to your mind? Bhakti Yogena.
Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam.
Thank you. What else? Huh?
Surrender to the Lord.
Yoga. What does it mean? What's the first thing come to your mind? Chanting.
Shravanam Kirtanam.
Bhakti Yoga. Service. Bhakti Yoga.
Surrender
Any
to
online
Krishna.
devotees? In case you are speaking, maybe I'm not able to hear. Obedience.
Shravanam
Bhakti Yoga.
Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam.
Discipline. Bhakti Yoga.
Surrender.
Saying something.
Surrender to the Supreme
Bhakti
Personality.
Yoga means.
Surrender to
Bhakti Yoga
Krishna.
means. Bhakti Yoga means.
Surrender.
Surrender.
Love with love and
In no other path, the concept of surrender is there. In Karma Yoga, is there any path of surrender? In Jnana, in Dhyana, they're trying to become God. In Bhakti Yoga, the path is of surrender. Surrender, surrender. Bewilder, bewilder, bewilder. So, got to surrender, you bewildered souls. That's how the whole idea. So, Bhakti Yoga means surrender.
It's
So we have
God
to ask
realization.
ourselves, are we really doing that? Look at all the aspects. The way our life changes. We now don't eat outside. We eat only Krishna Prasad. That's surrender. We chant every day. That's surrender. We attend morning program. Why? Prabhupada said surrender. May like or dislike, doesn't matter. So therefore, those who are on the platform, this Ichha Dvish, Sankalpa, Vikalpa, I like, dislike, they've just not understood Bhakti Yoga. They've not even begun the practice of it. It begins with surrender. You can't, the idea of Bhakti Yoga is to help you, deliver you from the mind. But you have taken shelter of the mind. In the practice of Bhakti, you're saying that, no, मैं ये नहीं करूँगा, मुझे अच्छा नहीं लगता, मैं वो करूँगा, मुझे अच्छा लगता है. That's not yoga. That's not yoga. All right. So that's the whole subject matter here. Text number 6. Solution continues. How one can become free? One has to become faithful by practicing the controlling process of the yoga system, and must elevate himself to the platform of unalloyed devotional service by chanting and hearing about me. Mai bhavena satyena mat katha shavanena cha. Fantastic, huh? Same concept again, hearing and chanting. Mai bhavena satyena mat katha shavanena cha. Man mana bhava mat bhakto madayagi maam namaskaro maam evashyasi yuktevam. One who is engaged like this in rendering devotional service unto me, he will surely come back to Evashyasi Yuklevam, engaged, will surely come back to me like that. So bhavena, mai bhavena satyena, bhav, man mana mad bhakto, man mana bhav. Bhava mad bhakto. What is this bhav? Bhav. What is this word? That means emotion. Bhav. Hona. Kisi ke liye bhav hona, emotion. Which means to cultivate emotions for the Lord. And how do we cultivate emotions for the Lord? Therefore, Srila Prabhupada in, the 7th canto, Shavanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada, Sevanam, Archanam. He gives a whole elaborate meaning of this Archanam. Prabhupada said it's very important at Kanishtadhikari stage for a devotee to engage in deity worship, to directly serve the deity. Chanting purifies and then gradually gives you love of Godhead. By directly serving the deities with the proper consciousness, preparing a plate of bhoga for the Lord. Oh, I'm serving my beloved. I'm serving, okay, maybe not the concept of beloved, but I'm serving the Supreme Lord. How nicely I should prepare bhoga plate for the Lord. How neat and clean. And it should be such a way that when the Lord gets it, his hands are not burnt. It should not be super hot. When we're preparing atik plate, it should look so neat and clean. The flowers that we keep on the plate, it should look so beautiful. This is called bhav. And when we practice, when we do this aspect of deity worship, deity service, and When we put consciousness, then power will develop. I'll give you my one example. I'm not trying to put myself into a picture here, but just to give one example, how deity services creates a bhav. I've quoted the example before also. It just, you have to be excited about it. You get a chance to do deity worship, you should be so excited about it. And every step, you should go through a meditation about it happens. Every step of the deity worship, the way you offer incense and you offer lamp, it's a meditation. You're actually meditating on the Lord. To give you an example, I have told this before also, but in this context, bhavena, we should develop emotions. At one point of time, when I was in Columbus, one devotee who used to bring flowers for the deities, he had gone out for a few months. So that service became available, and I was asked if I would like to do it. I said, fine, I can do that. So every Sunday, I had to go for almost, it was a 3 to 4 hours of service, traveling 1 hour, shortlisting flowers, bringing another 1.5 hours. And it was around 4 hours of service. I can tell you, it was simple. There is nothing. What is there in going to the market, bringing flower? Is there any excitement in that? Somebody goes, go get flower for the deity. Is there anything in that? I mean, they asked me to do it, I did it. But it changed my life. Amazing. When I went there, it used to be a big, this is America. It's not like India flower market. You have a cold storage, and in that, all the flowers are kept. And now walking a cold storage is not easy because it's cold. You really can't walk further. Imagine you go and see flowers, bring flowers, and on that also, I had already a list what flowers to take. It's not that I'm looking and picking, but just going through that, it created such a consciousness for me. I mean, I had such a fantastic 3 months of time till the time the devotee came. In fact, I had to fight with him. I said, Prabhu, let me continue. He said, no, this is the only seva. I have to take it back. When I started doing that seva, it affected my conscience so much. If now, let's say it's Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm going to office. And if I would see any flower anywhere, I will think immediately, wow, such a nice flower. How nice it would look on Krishna. And I can tell you, I didn't do anything. It just automatically developed. And if I look back why it would have developed, maybe I was eager to render that service. And the service was given, I was very in details. Every flower, the names in the list was given. I did my research to find out. And when I went there, I in fact asked them, is there any better quality at economical rate? I just didn't do my service. I wanted to make it better. And because I absorbed myself in seva, I felt Krishna reciprocated by giving me that ability. You're walking around and you see a garden and you see a flower, immediately remember, oh, how nice it will look if it is put on the garland of the Lord. And I never had that experience. Why? Maybe just I put a little bit of my consciousness in my doing my service. So all of you are doing deity worship while you're living in the center. How much we can create that ability? Now, when you go and prepare bhoga and you offer, imagine when you see anything nice, you see, oh, it will be so nice to offer to the Lord. That sense of enjoyment will go away. That's the whole idea about this bhakti yoga, which has been discussed here. When you render service, and if it is involved with bhava, then our purification happens quickly. That's the point. Mai bhavena satyana. Text number 7. Now, Kapil Dev talks about what should be the conduct of a devotee. Now, he's going to raise the bar. Interesting. Text number 7. Sarvabhuta samatvena. So, we'll go line by line. I mean, it's a big discussion. We'll go line by line just to give you a summary. Sarvabhuta samatvena. Sarvabhuta. Bhuta means living entity. Samatvena means equal vision. What it means, equal vision? Unbiased. We should give up our biasedness. This is North Indian, this is South Indian. Somehow North Indian, South Indian divide continues. Sometimes devotee says, so that kind of. Then, Sarvabhuta samatvena, unbiased. Nirvairena prasangataha. Nirvaira. Vairena aprasangataha. Vaira means nirvair. Vairi means enemy, envy. Nirvair means prasangataha, giving up envy, attachment to. So we should not have envy. Give up animosity. Brahmacharena maunena. Brahmacharena means celibate life. But grastas are also brahmacharis. When brahmachari, which means the sex life is used for procreation. That is the meaning of brahmacharya. So one who is in brahmachari ashram, there is no woman association, so he does not have a seva to procreate. That is brahmacharya. But one who is in grasta ashram, it is their duty to procreate Krishna conscious child. So then also they are called brahmachari. Maunena, silence. speaks only when it is needed or required. Swadharmena baliyasa. Swadharmena follows his prescribed duties. Baliyasa by giving up the results. This is about the conduct. Next, text number 8. Yadrachaya uppalabdhena. We'll go line by line. Yadrachaya uppalabdhena. Yadrachaya is an interesting word. It means without any difficulty. Uplabdhena, uplabdhena means जो भी मिल जाए, उपलब्ध हो जाए. Whatever you can get without too much difficulty, that you should accept. Santushto mitbhunmunihi. Santushto. So what? You should be satisfied what you can get without over endeavor. So it's today's day and time, when I talk to professionals who are in senior positions in their professional life, many times they tell me, Prabhuji, I can't even have my lunch. Even while having lunch, I'm having meetings. And I wonder, I said, how can you? I mean, if you're in a senior position, then you should get some control to dictate your schedule. The poor guys who are just joined the IT company, they are complaining, the manager gives all the work to them. As a manager, you are crying that I have no time. It means everyone is crying only. You have to be smart enough to take your time out. You have to draw a line. You cannot do it. As far as for communication, as far as for work, if you are a yes man, people will keep giving you work. In devotional life, we should be yes men. There we do, knock joke. नहीं नहीं मैं ये नहीं करूँगा वो नहीं करूँगा. In professional life, because वहाँ पे मूला पैसा मिलता है, so we offer full surrender. Yes sir. It should not be like this, and then we get exploited. Mittabhuk. Mittabhuk means eat what is necessary, what is required, and eat only Krishna Prasada. Munihi means grave or intellectual, thoughtful. Vivikta Sharanaha means living in a secluded place, which means living in association of devotees. Shantaha, peaceful. Maitraha, friendly. Karunaha, compassionate. Atmavan, self-realized. Maitri means friendly, which means friendly towards devotees. Because not friendly towards non-devotees. Towards non-devotees, you can be karunaha, compassionate, which means those who are non-envious, you show compassion, give your association. But friendliness is towards devotees only. Don't be friends with non-devotees. They'll drag you back to the non-devotee life. Be careful of it. Their sangha is dusangaha. All right, text number 9. So these were the, what was the 7th and 8th was about their conduct. Now, what is the vision of a practitioner of Bhakti Yoga, or one who is self-realized or who is walking the path? Let's take a look. One's seeing power should be increased through knowledge of spirit and matter, and one should not unnecessarily identify himself with the body, and thus becomes attracted by bodily relationships. Vision means he sees the difference between matter and spirit, and he understands what belongs to matter, what belongs to spirit, and what is the relationship of matter and spirit with each other and with the Lord. That's the point. Text number 10. One should be situated in the transcendental position beyond the stages of material consciousness and should be aloof from all other conceptions of life. Thus, realizing freedom from false ego, one should see his own self just as he sees the sun in the sky. To explain you, let's take a look at the purport, 5th line in the purport. Mother, you can share the screen. Our present consciousness should be freed from all perceptions of life other than consciousness of Krishna. It's a very important point. All of us look at the worlds and interpret the worlds with which we relate through our perceptions. And we are nothing but a product of our perceptions. Perception means biases, this is right, this is wrong, all that thing. We have to give up those perceptions and develop Krishna conscious perceptions. And one very effective manner of changing our perceptions is having this arti, carefully observing Tulsi arti, carefully observing when Lord is worshipped, because then it fills us with Krishna conscious thoughts and it changes our past samskaras, experiences, and fills it with Krishna conscious samskaras. First. Second, Kapil Dev gonna say ahead, I'm putting it now, how to change our perceptions by long hours of hearing. We should hear, and we should hear. It is so unfortunate, many of our devotees just do not hear. And even they will hear maybe this morning class. After that, they don't have. At least I'm grateful. So many of our congregation is able to join for morning program, morning class. At least a big step forward. Otherwise, we go online, we do some window shopping. Frankly speaking, I don't know how you can, even when I go to shop online to look for lecture, it is so confusing for me also what to hear. So many devotees saying so many things. How do you figure out what to do? It's a big, big challenge. So many devotees don't hear only. So we should hear and hear for longer. And therefore, to facilitate not only hearing and also reading. Therefore, to facilitate all this, we created a system called as Bhakti Life Program, which I've been telling now devotees when they send me their reports. And all of them have the same struggle. Prabhuji, hamara hearing nahi ho raha, hame reading nahi ho raha. So I'm replying to all of them. Please join the Bhakti Life Program. The system is designed in such a way it will automatically give you, based on your current practice, what you should hear, what you should read. Every hearing is provided, video lectures are provided, audio lectures are provided, and what you should read. The book's names is given. Along with that, how long you should be on this path, on this step. The time duration I have calculated and given also. So you know that it can be time-bound activity. But what to do? It's a challenge. Yeah, very nice puppet. Or should be freed from the perception of life other than consciousness and Krishna. Few lines below, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that the perfect devotee may see many movable and immovable objects. Anyone found it? Anyone online would like to read? But in everything, he sees that the energy of Krishna is acting. Where are we on this? There are too many highlights here. As soon as he remembers the energy of Krishna, he immediately remembers Krishna in his personal form. Therefore, in all his observations, he sees Krishna only. This is confirmed here. One should be freed from all other vision, outside and inside. This is, and that way he is free from all false egoistic identification. Sees himself as, okay, all right.
Can I do?
What it means to overcome our perceptions and to see from the point of view of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, before we can see, it is very important to understand Jiva, Prakriti, and Ishvara concepts. Everything is nothing but Prakriti. And when we see and we know this is Prakriti, then Prakriti belongs to who? Krishna. Then that spirit of enjoying, let's talk about male-female relationship because that's the biggest addiction, attachment. One who has understood the subject matter, one who is regularly hearing about this may not sound very delicious and tasty and relishable. These are no rasic stories here, these are philosophy here, but it's very essential at the Kanishta level because that helps us have a proper vision. So if let's say a man sees a beautiful woman or woman sees a man like that, a smart man, so the thought, it should not be. So the more we have the enjoying spirit, which is equivalent to the degree we envy of the Lord, to that degree we have that enjoying spirit. And to that degree, we do not have service attitude. That's a proportion. To that degree, we don't have service attitude. The moment we see an object, sense object, let's say a woman in that context, we would like to see her again and again. What does it indicate? We want to enjoy. Once we see it, all right, that's just by mistake. But because it's something beautiful, the mind will, again propel. Hey, see that again. You see it second time, then okay. But somebody turns back and sees third time. Chandramauli Maharaj says he's a rascal, which means now he's fallen. He has no control on mind and senses. So, but somebody who is hearing the subject matter on a regular basis, how everything is Prakriti, everything is part and parcel of the Lord. When somebody sees the living entity, maybe beautiful, maybe rich and whatnot, they say, oh, this is Krishna's, energy. Why should I be affected by it? Or why should I desire to enjoy? Text number 11. A liberated soul realizes the absolute personality Godhead, who is transcendental, who is manifest as a reflection in the false ego. In other words, he begins to see the Lord everywhere. Text number 12. The presence of the Supreme Lord can be realized just as the sun is realized first as a reflection of water and again as a second reflection of the wall of room. Although the sun itself is situated in the sky. So idea is of this verses, there is a beautiful analogy Prabhupada gives in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Before you can realize yourself, you realize the presence of the Lord. And he says, before you can see yourself in the mirror, you actually understand the presence of the sun. You cannot see yourself in the mirror unless there is a sunlight. Because the sun is existing, because of sunlight you're able to see, which means first you realize sun and then you see your reflection. Similarly, without realizing Krishna, there is no question of your self-realization. It's all illusion. Text number 13. The self-realized soul is thus reflected first in the threefold ego, then in the body, sense, and the mind. Okay, it's getting a little complicated here, what it means to be. So the self-realized soul, in other words, he sees everything in relation to Krishna. Let's move forward. Text number 14. Although devotee appears to be merged in the five material elements, Bhumirapo Nalo Vayu, come, the objects of material enjoyment, sense objects, and the material senses, the five senses, and the material mind and intelligence, come, mana, buddhi. He is understood to be awake and to be freed from false ego. So I explained this concept before. A devotee, although very much within the physical realm, have the body made up of water, matter, has mind, intelligence, false ego. He is in the material world, but he is not bound by the modes of material nature. Why? Because he is not a prisoner. He is not breaking the laws of the Lord. When you stop breaking the laws of the Lord, then the prisoner is set to free to go out. In that way, this verse is explained how a living entity, although being in this world, remains or becomes unaffected. Text number 15. Hare Krishna. This is a lot of philosophy going on here. Let me just ask, is it making some sense to all of you? Or am I sounding like आप लोगों को लोरी सुना रहा हूँ और मजे में आप नींद ले रहे हैं फिलॉसफी के समय? आप नहीं बोलोगे तो मैं आप सबसे प्रश्न पूछूंगा. All right. Text number 15. Manyamana sadatmanam anashto nashtavanmrsha nashte ahankarane drashta nashtvita ivaturaha. The living entity can vividly feel his existence as a seer, but because of the disappearance of the ego during the state of deep sleep, he falsely takes himself to be lost, like a man who has lost his fortune and feels distress, thinking himself to be. So these are, in an analogical point of view, Kapil Muni is saying certain concepts. Let's understand what it means by he's saying a living entity feels lost. When does a living entity feels lost? An only situation when he doesn't have a master. Have you seen a dog, a stray dog on the street? He only feels lost. He's moving from one master to another and getting kicked. And there is another dog that comes with a, as a noose around his neck. And the master is holding and he's accompanying the master because he has a master. He walks very confidently. He doesn't go to somebody else asking for something. So living entity, as Kapil was saying, living entity is feeling lost. Have you ever had that experience? Let me ask this thing. How many of you had that experience? You felt like, what's going on? What am I doing in this life? Have you ever had that experience in your life where you actually had a sense of loss? Is my life really worth living? What am I doing with it? What's going on and what not? So Prabhupada speaks about this very beautifully in Ishopanishad invocation. When the verse comes, Om Purnamada Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. This invocation says, Om, the Lord, who is Purna, manifest Purna units. The material world is Purna, to fulfill all our desires. Yet a living entity experiences incompleteness. In the complete whole, a living entity experiencing incompleteness is only because of one thing. Because this incomplete, this living entity is not having the relationship with the Supreme. Because of not having the relationship with the Supreme, he experiences incompleteness, emptiness, loneliness, or a feeling of lost. That is a point over here. Why a living entity experiences loss. Text number 16. When by mature understanding one can realize his individuality, then the situation he accepts under falsity becomes manifest to him. So this is towards Mayavadis. A living entity's individuality is never lost. Srila Jiva Goswami gives a beautiful example that Prabhupada often quotes. An example is when a green parrot. I was sitting today morning here chanting. I don't know how many of you noticed those tall trees there. There are a lot of parrots there. So today morning only I was meditating on this analogy when I was sitting here. I saw the parrots flying and sit on the branch of the tree and disappear because they merged. So Jiva Goswami said, because the parrot, green color, when they go and sit on the branch of the tree having green leaves, it merges. Merges is there. The color has merged, become one. But the parrot is still individual. And the branch of the tree and the tree is still individual. So that's the point here. Our individuality is never lost. That's the point. A living entity understands that. Then he understands the real situation. All right. So how a living entity functions under the material nature, modes of material nature, how he can be set free has been discussed so far. Now comes the next question of Devhuti, which I feel after this I should pause because there are only 5 minutes more to go to our class to end. We may do part 2 for this because these are, subject matter that takes time. Let's take a look at what question Devhuti asked. I'll give you a little brief and we'll open for discussion if you have any questions. Devhutirvacha Purusham Prakritim Brahman Na Vimunchati Karhichit Anyonena Anyonena Ya Apashrayatvacha Nitatvat Anyayo Prabhu. She asked something very interesting now. My dear Brahmana, does material nature ever give release to the spirit soul? Since one is attracted to the other eternally, how is there separation possible? So, Kapil Dev, if you will do a recap now, and let's take a look at the discussion what's going on. Kapil Dev so far spoke about how a living entity gets into the clutches of modes of material nature. And what situation he gets in the situation of modes of material nature? 2 things. Ichha, Dvesha, Samuthena. All right? Because of desire to become Krishna and because of his envy towards Krishna, he is put into this material life and he gets covered by modes of material nature. When he is covered by the modes of material nature, then he continues to suffer. How he continues to suffer? Samsara chakra etasmin, jantur jnana mohitaha. So he continues to go through the cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. Sometimes go to the higher planets, sometimes go to lower planets, higher species, lower species. Like that, he continues to suffer. So one who continues to live a material life, he continues to suffer. But then he says, well, there is a solution. You can free yourself from the material clutches, even while living in this world. How can you do so? Kapil Dev says, give up proprietorship, which means continue to perform your prescribed duties, but do not act independently. Now, in what situation the feeling of proprietorship comes? The feeling of proprietorship arises when you act independently. Hey, I have done this. But when we do things what have been told to us, then the spirit of proprietorship does not arise. That's what Prabhupada writes in the purport. So Kapil Dev spoke about, and that's the reason we talked about Yagna Arthat Karmano Anatya Loko Yam Karma Bandhana. Mai Sarvani Karmani Sanyasa Dhyatma Chetasa. So the purpose of work is purification of heart, consciousness. And the ultimate goal is Samsiddhir Haritoshana. So this is what all has been discussed. And after that, Kapil Dev talks about what is the conduct of a Vaishnava. What is the conduct? He is unbiased, sarvas bhuta, samavrata. He sees everyone equally. He does not envy anyone. Like that. He's kind, he's friendly, he's compassionate, he's mithabuk, he stays alone, he's muni, etc., etc. These are described about his attitude or conduct. His vision, he sees the matter and spirit to be different. After hearing all these things, Devhuti thought, my dear Prabhu, all said good. But the question is, the attraction between Jiva and Prakriti is so strong. And Jivatma is so entangled into Prakriti. Unless Prakriti sets Jiva free, Jiva cannot be freed. So would Prakriti ever release Jiva? Please try to understand. Imagine an insect which has been caught in a cobweb. The more insect flaps, moves around, the more he gets entangled. That is the situation of us in this creation. So Devotee is asking, is it ever possible? Unless the spider comes and breaks the cobweb himself, the living entity, the fly has no means to come out of the cobweb. Similarly, she's asking, she's not asking that, she's saying, would the nature, she's not addressing the spider, she's saying, would the nature, which means the cobweb, to which the living entity is so entangled, would the cobweb automatically ever release? Well, that is not possible. And this is where she's throwing a googly by this question for Mayavadis. Now the discussion which will happen, it kind of, stuns the Mayavadis. Because yes, nature will not do it. Nature cannot do it. Just like the cobweb cannot set the fly free, but the spider can do it. Similarly, who created the cobweb? Spider. Whose energy is Prakriti? Krishna. Maya adhyakshena Prakriti suete sacharacharam. So if Krishna wants, he can set the living entity free. Therefore, Krishna says, Devi Eshagunamai Mama Maya Duratya. So here she asks this question, and now with this question, Kapildev gets an opportunity to speak exclusively about Bhakti Yoga. And the Prabhupada's purpose will, purport after purport, he will smash Mayavadis. They are fools and rascals. How is it possible? They are saying their forgetfulness is their pastime. And because they don't have a proper reasoning for why they are in this material life suffering here, they call everything false. If everything is false, not temporary, they don't say temporary. If everything is false, which means the food that they're eating is false. The Prabhupada said, well, the stool that you produce after eating food is also false. If the food is false, stool is false, then if everything is false, then there's no discrimination. Then why do you look at a halwa and say, I want to eat halwa? If it is false, you should not have any desire to eat halwa. Then you should eat stool. Oh, no, Swamiji, how it is possible? So like that, the discussion will go and it will further elaborate understanding. So this is what it is. So only Krishna can set the living entity free. There is no way we on our struggle can get free from the clutches of material nature because we have entangled ourselves so much because of this karmatmakam buddhi. We cannot cut our bonds of attachment to Prakriti because actually we know nothing except for Prakriti. Our shelter, whose shelter do we take? If it is not for Krishna, whose shelter would you take? Okay, give me who are shelter givers in this world? Practical bolo. Don't give me this kind of thing, which is correct. Who are the shelter giver? Your manager? Yes, he gives you job. He gives you a job, he gives you money. That's a shelter giver. Your parents, your friends, if you're married, your wife or husband. And then when your kids grow up, your kids, the government of a country, the police. So if you see, this is all Prakriti. This is all Prakriti. We know nothing beyond Prakriti. So how can a living entity set himself free from the Prakriti when he's actually sheltered on Prakriti? Different nuances and facets of Prakriti. So unless, therefore, Kapil Dev would say, unless living entity takes shelter of Krishna, who is the master of Prakriti. Krishna is the master of your manager, of your parents, of your wife, of your kids, of your husband, everything. Bhoktaram, he is the Mahaishvara. Unless one takes shelter of Krishna, one cannot disentangle oneself from the bounds of Prakriti. Hare Krishna. So this is for today. I'll pause here. Hare Krishna. This is what happens when I read purport. Last time I didn't read purport, so I was quick. So today I thought, no, I should do justice. I can't give on the spot class on this complicated subject. So this is all from Srila Prabhupada's purport. We pause here with Devoti asking a question. Would Prakriti ever release living entity? And Kapil Dev says, well, not really. And I answered, what is the answer for that? Any questions? Was it making sense, or was it throwing short balls,
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
bouncers, right above the forehead?
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, आवाज आ रही है?
Okay, so there's a good pin drop silence. So we conclude here for today. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki. I remember when I went for Vrindavan Yatra, at the end of Vrindavan Yatra, one devotee was giving me a feedback. He said, Prabhu ji, आप पुणे में बहुत अलग प्रकार के लेक्चर देते हो. मैं कहा पुणे में फिलॉसफी डिस्कस करते हैं ना. So anyone, if you are thinking, yeah, too much of philosophy, so in that case, Sunday शाम को अब हम श्रीमद् भागवतम 10th canto से चर्चा शुरू कर रहे हैं. Every Sunday evening now we're gonna begin from Krishna's Mathura Leela. I thought हमारी वृंदावन लीला तो हो गई है थोड़ी वृंदावन यात्रा में, अब हम मथुरा लीला शुरू करेंगे, फिर द्वारका लीला. So now we'll have Sunday evenings full pastimes only. First pastime will be killing of Kamsa. All right. I mean, little violence adds fun to that story. Then we'll go to the sweetness of Dwarka Leela later on. Okay, looks like I'm not able to hear. Somebody is saying, how do I hear? My speaker is full. Who is speaking?
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी. हरि हरि.
External speaker. 1 second, let me check. Oh, why speaker is not working? Oh, working. Yes, go ahead if anyone is saying something. I
हरे
can hear
कृष्णा
you.
प्रभु, able to
Yes.
hear me?
Now I can hear you. Yes, sir.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु.
Prabhu, बोलिए.
Prabhu, the question is, I've heard in the past Srimad Bhagavatam classes that if one does any devotional activity, not thinking in the mind that the Lord will get pleased with this activity, but with some little ulterior motives. So that devotional activity is not a karma in that case. So it will turn into the pious activity. So is that understanding correct, first of all, Prabhuji?
Which is correct. And Krishna himself says, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktaya Prayachati. If it is not done with an intention to please Krishna. However, at the sadhaka stage, it cannot be expected also, particularly at the initial stages. Therefore, we are given rules and regulation. We are given prescriptions, what to do, what not to do. And we follow that. We don't worry too much about what's the state of my consciousness in terms of while rendering the service, if I'm in the right, am I having this enjoyment mentality? Well, that is going to be there. However, one way you can tackle this is at least do what has been told to you. At least develop the spirit of obedience. The problem arises at the sadhaka stage or for any community. Every community have these challenges as the community begins to grow. Those who have been around for a while, let's call them seniors, they begin to act independently. They think now, I know everything. I don't need to ask. I can do this. I can do that. And so all that leads to a lot of problems then. So as long as we can be obedient, regardless of we are attached or not attached, we have ulterior motives, or maybe I pick a service which I often like, all right. But at least be obedient, try to follow, and it will gradually purify our state, our consciousness, like this. So regarding bhakti, in one sense, our bhakti is yet to start. Our bhakti is because we are following Guru and Guranga, so that has been accepted as bhakti. But when you read about what exactly is a devotional service, when let's go to the 10th canto, when you read about their services, then we'll feel extremely embarrassed. How anything and everything Brajavasis did, there's so much emotion, there's so much bhava for Krishna. The Gopas are not going to the forest. Oh, okay, my mother has said another day with Krishna. Every day. Very boring, हाँ. येलो कलर की धोती पहन के आ जाता है और कुछ काम ही नहीं है उसको. एक ही प्रकार का मोर पंख लगा के बैठा है. So boring. No, well, they loved Krishna. So at our stage, fine. And as we go through the process, Krishna and the process of purifying us will become properly situated soon. Does that make sense, Abhishek Prabhu?
Yes. So till that time, our bhakti account is not getting credited. Is it like that?
No, not like Bhakti account. Bhakti account is created. In fact, Krishna says, Swa alpamasya dharmasya trayate. Even a small. See, devotional service begins with surrender. As I said, Bhakti Yoga means surrender. So, if you have been told to chant and you are chanting because it's an order, we have been told to chant 16 hours minimum, that's Bhakti. It may not be pure Bhakti, but it's Bhakti because you're following. Okay?
So, Prabhuji, whatever actions we are doing with the ulterior motives, whatever services we are doing with ulterior motivation, so will that reap the pious results?
No, no, no. It's not subject matter of pious results like that. When you engage under the direction of Guru and Gauranga, then there's no function of karma there. It's not karma or vikarma. It's bhakti. Only thing is, may not be Shuddha Bhakti. Why? Because Shuddha Bhakti has been defined as Anya Abhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. So as you're saying, ulterior motives, and through this Anya Abhilashita Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavritam, Rupa Goswami has already removed ulterior motivations. So we may not have that, but it's bhakti, but not pure bhakti. Okay?
Okay, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So how was this experience of open air class today? I'm sorry, I'll talk to all of you. We'll close it online.
Very nice, Prabhuji.